We're saying the right word is Vaheguru. Your actual focus is not listening. It's not saying, wow. What can happen is you start feeling dry and low. When you're trying to work out what's happened, I took the prescription, but did we? The prescribed discipline, we didn't go by that. Doshna daru vedano. That now you can't expect to be blaming the doctor here that you've messed up in the medicine that you've given me. Without that discipline, that disease, which is the Kaam, Krodh, Lobh, Mohankar, they continue to increase. And it's quite natural, isn't it, at that point to think, well, I'm doing all this. Guruji told me that like Kirtan is the way forward in this world, and I do loads of Kirtan. But how comes it's not working? It's a mantra that we recite with faith because it's charged by the Guru and given to us. It's also wisdom when we're actually saying, wow, we're in a state of awe of that one. And also it's to remove the ego, is to say the person that I'm in awe of is way beyond my little ego. That's why then it starts to work for us. On its own and without the discipline, we've not disciplined then our mind. And actually what you need to do is bring your surti, which is your then focus and attention, you need to bring it together with the medicine, with the name of God. Welcome to the Japji Sahib Podcast. In this episode, we'll be going through the 8th stanza of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Bani. So we'll be looking at what it actually means to listen. So throughout this actual episode, we'll come to learn about ourselves, that are we really listening? What does it mean to listen? So let's go straight in. First, again, introducing our guest behind the camera, Preet Charan Singh. So let's say a Fateh. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you so much for having me on. Looking forward to it.
No problem. So we go straight into the first Bhangati here, the first line. Guru Nanak Dev Ji saying to us, so this is one of 4 paudiyaan, 4 stanzas that Guru Nanak Dev Ji has dedicated to this avastha, and avastha means state. So when we say state, we're referring to when you kind of grow internally into this spiritual state. And this here, Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying Suniai. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. But let's just read out the first line. Yeah, Guru Nanak Dev Ji saying Suniai, Sidh Peer Sur Naath. So throughout these lines, there's going to be a pause after the first word, after the word Suniai. And often, again, where the pronunciation is concerned here with this word as well, we do often find a lot of people not pronouncing it accurately and missing that pronunciation where the dulama are concerned. And then on the Rana, there's actual Sahari, so it's Suniai, and you often hear things like Suniai, which would be a Bihari on the Nana, and then it would be a Lam on the Ada. So here, it's Guru Nanak Dev Ji saying Suniai. So if we just focus on this word for a while, because the way it's spelt, because it would probably be easier and flow for us if we just said Suniai. And but here, why has it been spelt in this way? And do you think it was just to make it a bit difficult for us?
I'm sure it has some deeper meaning.
Yeah, it's quite simple in that sense. What it's saying here is it's referring to through listening. And that's what the Dulama actually tell us. It's saying that, so when somebody listens, and we're going to try and understand what that means to listen. And so it's saying through doing that, this is kind of the result, and this is what you'll experience, what you can experience, what you can obtain, where you can get to. And so it just shows how profound this task of listening actually is. So Suniai, listening. So there's hearing and then there's listening. And what do you think, Preet? Would you class yourself as a good listener?
Oh, I don't know about that. It's for the person that's given the feedback to say that, really. But what I do know about listening, I think, is that you're giving that in kind of a worldly sense, is that hearing is just like the information's going in your head, but to listen to something is to kind of absorb it and to take in that information or that wisdom, whatever. And then, you know, you can have something called active listening as well, where you get almost feedback as well to someone and say like, okay, is this right what you're saying? But I think this is probably a bit more deeper than that.
No, but we'd have to actually go through all these steps to get to that.
Okay.
And if we don't know these basic steps of listening, like you just said, you know, you've got the hearing, which is just the sounds that are actually going in through our ear and then going into wherever they need to be processed and then becoming a part of our memory. So yeah, it's important to understand all of that. And then the steps of, like you mentioned, active listening as well. So we know that for us to actually be able to listen to someone, there's a requirement of our focus. And so our attention and focus needs to be present for us to actually do the listening part. To hear somebody, we don't need to be focused. It could be just going in. Right? We can hear sound. The sound is just there. It's happening. But to listen to someone, our attention is required for us to be able to actually listen to what they are saying. And then, even if we're sat here looking at each other face to face, still, it could be that whilst you're talking to me, I'm potentially not really that interested in what you're saying. And because I'm trying to just focus on what I want to say to you. So I'm hearing bits of what you're saying, but actually I've already worked out what I want to say to you. So that again isn't actually listening. And to be able to listen, it requires humility. And humility is like when you lower yourself, and it's not that you're looking down at that person now. You're in that state of humility. You're truly listening to them, and you're going to now base your response on what they've actually said and after you've heard them and listened to them, right? So that's really important to understand. So I don't know if you've experienced that where you're listening to someone, but to be honest, I do find that you're a good listener unless you're actually busy setting up your equipment, but then that's down to the other person as well to try and look at. It's probably not the right time, and because at that time it is important for you to be focused on, you know, the work that you're doing, all this equipment that you're setting up. But other than that, I do find, unless, like I said, like everyone, we're occupied, but I think you do listen quite well. But have you found yourself in that experience where you're actually just you already know what you want to say?
Of course.
Yeah,
it requires effort.
Yes.
To take a step back and listen to it, and also do it from a place of non-judgment, so that you're trying to put yourself in their shoes. You're trying to understand what they're saying, because also they might be saying something, but there might be something deeper from that, and to try and understand them and connect to the feeling behind the words that they're saying. And then
totally. Sorry, that nod was to agree. That wasn't saying no. So that was like yes. They say depending where you're from, your nods can vary. But
that's right. You got this nod as well, haven't you?
Yes. So that nod was in agreement. Yeah, it was like that. You can cut all of that out if you want. Yeah. So they say, you know, when you look at negotiators that go out and actually negotiate with governments and world level leaders, so they are actually trained. You're not just listening just to the words, but you're going even deeper, and that requires then another level of attention, because now you're tapping into energy. Now you're tapping into, like you said, the emotions and feelings. These might be worldly examples, but actually if you think about it, like, it's all in that sense. Just because we're not talking about something internal, But even if we're talking about something external, it's just as important, because even this is all a part of Vaheguru's game, and connecting and communicating with each other as fellow human beings is another way to connect to that one. So even if we're talking about the skills of listening to each other, I feel is just, as relevant, because if we can learn how to do that, then we can also learn how to connect inside. Having said that, I think even whilst you're focusing on the way you're listening to somebody else, if you become so ekagar, which means focused, single-minded, focused, that you are more likely to be in touch with that Vaheguru from inside, being in touch with that God communicating with us from inside. So it's kind of, works, because to do that, to be able to really listen to someone, you need all the gun. You need we spoke about daya as well. You didn't use the word, but what you was describing was actually compassion. So compassionate listening. And these are things nowadays. And actually, so when we do that, then we are connecting to God anyway. And so what it means is that if I listen to you compassionately, what I'm saying is that actually I'm concerned for your well-being, that I actually care for your well-being. So as I'm listening compassionately, that compassion is saying that, of course, I want good for you. That compassion is saying that, I don't want you to suffer anymore. And so I'm going to listen to you even with more focus, so that I can really connect to what you're saying. And the more subtle my concentration becomes, right, and or fine it becomes, I think that describes it better. The more fine my focus becomes in listening to you, the more I'll actually be able to read inside of you as well. And then I still wait, because then you need patience as well. You need tiraj as well. Jat bahara tiraj sunayar. So, that's the last pauri of Sri Japabani, where Guru Sahib Ji saying that, the Sunyara, the actual goldsmith, if he's going to make an ornament, if he's going to make something, one that Sunyara represents is patience, because it's so intricate, the actual, the work of a goldsmith, putting making these little links in these chains, and how fine that work is. And so it takes that patience as well. And once I've got all of those together and away at the end of it, then I can again, with that compassion, ask you, what I read inside as well. And, you can then bring that out, bring that forward, and you'll often find that you're not really off the mark. This isn't assumption. Assumption is different. Assumption is you're stuck in your own fears. You're working from a place of lack, and you're thinking that, I bet you they're thinking this about me. That's different. Huh? So I think even at that point, I think these conversations here that we're having are so that we can start practicing these things in our life. Even at this point, I think just after this conversation itself now, I think it should hopefully help me more. And even though, it's not that I've not thought about these things, I've not contemplated these things, but it's a reminder. What we're doing now is we're having a chat. So it's a reminder to myself as well. And I think just having this chat, hopefully the next conversation I have with somebody, I'll be able to utilize some of those qualities. And yeah. All right. So if we now move on to the next part of Suniai here, because the way we've translated this is not, this translation hasn't come randomly, not just what we've, this through listening to the one's name. This is a translation that has been used by Friedrich Dika. It's a translation that has been used by Taksal as well. Yeah, so they all saying that Naam nu sunan de naal, by listening to the name. So, but again, what does that even mean? Like listening, what does it mean to listen to the name? And the first step of listening to the name is when we do the practice of Jap, which is when you recite God's name, and that's referred to as Bakari Bani, which is out loud. Yeah. And even if you just take that as a practice that we've been given, so as Sikhs, this is like one of the utmost things that we've been given as a way to connect to God, which is the path of Naam Japna. So if I just say Naam on its own, that is fully loaded because that means more than just Japana. So it's good to add on the Japana to it. So the Japana part is actually when you recite something. So even if we start, let's just start there. That's the first stage, is we just say, when we're saying out the word Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Vaheguru. When we're saying out that word, we can just say where we're not focused on it. We can just say when we're not actually listening to it. Yeah. And we all know that I can be saying the word Vaheguru, but I can be thinking of other things. I could be definitely visiting other places within myself. Right? I'm sure I've experienced that. And I'm sure 99% people out there experience that.
100%. And then a bhakti comes to mind. I hope it's relevant and you can do vichar
Yeah,
on
no,
it.
of course.
Where Guruji says, Ravani Suniai Rasana Gaya Hirda Tyaya Soi.
This is perfect. Like, there's no way I could have thought this up on my own. And that's why they say that, what we're doing essentially now is Sangat, isn't it? So let's have a look. Saravani Suniye. Listen, use your ears to listen here. And then, obviously it's here. But Guru Sahib is taking us deeper than that, Obviously, yes, with our ears we listen, but this is talking about actual listening, which is with our focus, where our dhyan is, because this is now all about dhyan. It's all about what we are focused on, because that is what is going to get the fal. Yeah. So, Sarvani Suniye Rasana Gaye. So we could be singing with our tongue, but then that is one stage. Right? But the whole thing of it, the essence of it, is if we're focused on it, if we're listening to it. Hirdetiya soi. Soi here is referring to that one, and hirde is our heart, and tiya is meditating. So it's about meditating from our heart on that one through listening, whatever we are singing. Yeah. And even now, I think, we can look at this now. If we look at the word Vaheguru, and I was contemplating this with the Sangat a few days ago on Sunday, that just the word Vaheguru itself, it's like an all-encompassing mantra. So what do I mean by that? So if we take out a pankti now, I think the pankti that Vaho Vaho Kartiyan Rain Sukh Vihai, this is by Guru Amar Das Ji, and taken from it's the expression of being in awe of Vah. And that's obviously the Guru Mantra that Guru Sahib has given us, is Vaheguru. So what do we mean that it's all encompassing, this one mantra is? So if you think about it, if you're truly saying it, so now use this now to the Suniya. So we're singing what? Say in this instance here, it's just the word Vaheguru. So we're singing Vaheguru, like Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Bhakti Bani out loud, right? And then Va in itself as an expression is this, it's actually gratitude as well. It's automatic recognition of being in a state of gratitude, because you're in awe of that one, of that creator, that creator's creation. And so you're grateful for that you are in awe of. So it's just an automatic, like, thank you, being in gratitude. Yeah. And it's an expression of awe when you're just like, wow. Yeah. And so you've got the wow there, you've got the gratitude there as well. And Va is also an expression of being in love. Because according to Guru Granth Sahib Ji, being in love is that no matter what is going on, that you're not complaining. And that you're still stable. You're not like, you don't alter. And that's what Guru Granth Sahib Ji described as being in love. So if you look at this here, Guru Angad Dev Ji saying that Change Changa Kar Manne. Manne is like, so what's being said here is that when something good is happening, what I perceive to be good. So if I've kind of, in my head, I've said like this thing that is happening in life or with me, right? This is good. And that is my own perception. Yeah. And then, because I perceive that to be good, what do I say? Changa karmanne. I accept that to be good. And what that's saying is deeper than that. Is saying that I'm saying that God is good. And what God is doing here is good. But then it says that manda hoye. It's saying that what I perceive to be bad, then I'm saying, oh, that was terrible. That was bad. But what it's actually saying here is I'm pointing a finger at God to say that's bad. Yeah, it's not that I'm looking at the actual situation and people and looking at that. Well, when people get caught up in the egos, then they end up in this state and end up doing these things. But I'm actually now pointing at God instead. I'm not looking at how it works, or how people resist God. They get caught in their egos and then they create all of this, whatever they created. But I'm actually now, I'm going straight to God and saying, nah, this is terrible what you're doing. Yeah, this is bad. Yeah. Guru Angad Dev Ji said that this isn't love. Where's the Pankti? Where's the Ashiki? Ihuna Akiye. You can't call that person a lover. A lover is somebody that is constantly in love, that never comes out of love. Yeah. And if you're caught up in this whole account system, yeah, so literally imagine you could be on this crazy roller coaster ride. You're on this you're on this like that seesaw, just up, down. Is that what they call them? You're literally sitting on one of those because you have a good morning. Yeah, sun's out and you think, oh, wow, God, you smashed it. Like, this is amazing what you're like. And then, somebody cuts you up in the car and then, they swear at you and you think, that's bad, man. Like, why are you doing this to me for? Remember, you're not looking at that person, that they are caught up in whatever they are caught up. It's because of each other's egos. We've gone straight to God and say, like, this is bad. Why would you do that to me? Guru Angad Dev Ji saying, that's not love. Yeah. And then how many times do we do that in a day? Right? So like we're literally like this, like on that seesaw, just up and down. Guru Sahib says, nah. That's not, you're not in love now. So if we go back to the Pankti that, we were looking at, so we was talking about here, like Gaviye. And when we're saying Vaheguru, it's all of that in one. Yeah. We're in all of that one all the time. Yeah. And we're constantly in the state of gratitude. We're constantly saying, you're wow. And that would be then actually listening to it when we're saying it. There's some real sustenance behind it. Like, there's some power behind it when we're saying it. And that's why there's times where we end up in this state of mechanical repetition. We don't connect to it. There's no sustenance behind it. We're saying the right word. Yeah. The word is being said is Vaheguru. But the thoughts could be that you're terrible, saying to God. That could happen. You could actually be, because you get used to saying it, it's a process of the body. It's being said again and again. It's going on inside, right? And you just go, you sit in there, but your actual focus, the dhyan, is not listening. It's not saying wow. right? Your dhyan is saying that you're quite bad at that you've done this. And then what can happen is you start feeling dry and low. You're feeling dry and low and you're trying to work out what's happened. I took the prescription, but did we? Yeah, we've taken half of it. You want to find the Bhai Gurdasji one?
Yeah.
I can remember the part where the half of the pankti is in Nitya Roga Vadanda. So if we look at this line by Bhai Gurdasji now, it just gives this amazing kind of description of what we're talking about. It's saying, Ave Vad Sovad Kar. So if this pretty Sovad here means this Vad, this physician, this doctor, he's pretty clued up. He's a wise doctor. Daru Dasse gives us prescribes us the medicine. Daru's the medicine. Rog Lahanda, which is supposed to be removing our medicine. Removing our disease, right? And then, but Bhai Gurdasji says, what's happened now is that Sanjam Rahena Khaye Path. So we were supposed to remain in Sanjam. Sanjam means there were certain things there were certain disciplines that we were supposed to be taking in our life. There's certain precautions, right? So, but the prescribed discipline, we didn't go by that. Sanjam Rahena Khaye Path. Khatta Mitha Sau Chakhanda. That's always a bit of a difficult one, the khatta, right? So, because that's a tank, I think you're going to say khatta. Yeah? Khatta Mitha Sau Chakhanda. And here they're saying the example that's been used is now they decide to keep eating sweet and sour things. So this could be that the medicine was given to them potentially for a cough or the stomach's playing up or something. But they continue to eat that, right? But then Bhai Gurdasji says, Doshna daru vedanu, that now you can't expect to be blaming the doctor here. Yeah, dosh means blaming. Doshna daru vedanu. You can't say to the doctor that you've messed up in the medicine that you've given me. Min sanjam nit rog vadanda. Without that discipline, that rog, that disease, whatever we have got, and the disease of whatever stems from our ego, which is the Kaam, Krodh, Lobh, Mohankar, right? So, which is the anger, the greed, and all of those that come from the ego, they continue to increase. And it's quite natural, isn't it, at that point to think, well, I'm doing all this. Like, Guruji told me that, like, Kirtan is the way forward in this world. And, I do loads of Kirtan. But, the Guru told me, like, that Naam Sarba Roka Aukha Naam, that, of course, like, that Naam is the medicine for all diseases. But how comes it's not working? And I'm sure so many of us will be able to relate to that. If we just look at this pankti now, Har Har Naam Aukhad Mukh Deba Kate Jam Ki Fanda, that the Naam here, the medicine here is Har Har Naam, is the name of God. And then it's given to us Mukh Deva. Like if you think about, like, when a medicine is given to you through you, and literally that's what happens, isn't it? Like the Panj Pyare, or at that time the Guru themselves would be just literally like transferring that mantra into you, and for you to then continue, See, the thing is that the other thing that's important to look at is it's not just a mantra, like where, yeah, it's a fully loaded mantra. It's like charged by the Guru, but it's not. And I got to meet a Gurmukh once about 6-7 years ago in Amritsar Sahib, and this Gurmukh said something amazing to me. He said, "Look," he goes, when we take something from the Guru, and it be Bani, be the mantras that the Guru has given us, and he goes, if we look at it only as a mantra, and what he meant by that was, like, this is a word that's charged by the Guru. I'm just going to say, right, and we carry on otherwise, like we spoke about. Our mind could be wandering, could be thinking about how bad God is or whatever, or something. Let's take a lighter example, which is more probably relatable example, is that, you're still kind of cursing somebody within your own mind. Yeah. And then we're thinking, well, this isn't work, and all of that. And this Gurmukh said to me, which I thought, and I feel that is such an important kind of takeaway message for me. It was anyway that time, and it might be for others. And he goes, so look at it like this. He says, look at it as that it's a half month or something that you just recite again and again and again. He goes, but it's half. Then look at it as half wisdom. Just a way of, describing it. Some people might not relate to the half thing, but it's just a way of trying to understand something. And he goes, look at it as half wisdom. He goes, it's mantar and gyan, right? He goes, when you get the two just right, he goes, then you'll see the magic happen. So like we said, it's a mantra that we recite with faith because it's charged by the Guru and given to us. But then it's also gyan, it's also wisdom, which is, we've got to, when we're actually saying, wow, saying we're in a state of awe of that one. And the fourth thing, I named three things before, that it's gratitude, it's, where you're in a state of awe, and also it's to remove the ego, is to say the person that I'm in awe of is way beyond my little ego. So you're connecting to the name, right? And that's why then it starts to work for us. Because by Gurdas Ji said, on its own, without the sanjam, without the discipline, right? So we've not disciplined then our mind. And if we had an even more open conversation, some people will say to us, yeah, but just keep doing it and you'll be fine.
It reminds me of a Bhakti you've done Kathav many times from Sri Anand Sahib.
Okay.
Har har nit kare rasna kahya kachu na jani.
Yeah. And you're perfect. We can leave that on for a while. And because we do hear that, don't we? We hear people say, just keep going. Just keep blasting it out. I'm not saying that's wrong because I have no authority. But what I'm saying is like, that is true. But then I think maybe in today's age, because our minds are becoming more and more scattered, because we're putting so much information into our brains from social media, from everywhere. Like, and I just think then when we say that to someone, we need to say a bit more with it. Yeah, it's on its own isn't enough. It might work for some people, but I think not necessarily for everyone. So with that, you have to say, oh, by the way, be careful what you're thinking about as well. Yeah. And because you don't forget, you are going to get the fruit for that as well. And actually what you need to do is bring your surti, which is your then focus and attention. You need to bring it together with the medicine, with the name of God. Because really, it won't even become the name of God for you. Yeah. And so in this way, when we start listening to what we are saying, the Naam, and what will happen is the more fine our then focus and concentration starts to become. It's out loud, and then even when you're saying it quietly inside the mantra, your focus becomes even more concentrated, your dhyan. And then as it goes deeper and deeper inside of you, it goes even more focused. Your concentration, it gets more and more subtle. But it takes you to a point where it's going so deep inside and becoming so subtle that it takes you to that one that has no name. Because this is a journey from name to no name. This is a journey from that, Jap man Satnam, like you're reciting that one's name, but eventually you're getting to that one that is literally like Namastanganame. And I don't know if you'll be able to find that now, because you'll need to pair it up with something else. Now, I don't know if I can remember it from the... Oh, you can. Amazing.
Shabad OS is such a good app for finding Gurbani, just by the way.
How did you do that?
I literally typed in Nanan era.
Okay.
And it came up. Because the algorithm on this app, it tries to prioritize what you're trying to look for.
Oh, wow.
So just a shout out to the Shabad OS team.
Amazing.
Provide these translations for us.
Amazing. So we might be saying that one's name, but that one actually is beyond name. And as we're saying it, as that name and our focus is becoming more and more subtle, it's actually taking us to where we end up bowing down to Namastang Aname. And that is actually what we refer to as Satnam, which is just where you go to that place of truth beyond your identities. When you go beyond your identities and ego, then there's that one inside that where there's just we could call it pure intelligence, which is like the ego side of us. Maharaj refers to when we're stuck in our ego, calls that like you're a fool when you're stuck in that. Yeah. And then Maharaj says, but then that when you get to that one, then it's all-knowing intelligence. And the Pankti is?
Gur ki mat? No?
Or the other one from Guru Arjan Dev Ji Shabad, where Guru Arjan Dev Ji saying that...
Hamurak?
Yes. I just wanted you to say it. Yeah. Because the hum here is the ego. The ego that thinks I know it all. That thinks it can comprehend the whole existence of this creation. But actually, it's when we go beyond the ego, when we can comprehend it and be in it and know it. Hum Murak, but tum chatur siyane, you are so wise and all know, tu sarb kala ka gyata, you are the knower of everything. Yeah. So when we go, we could look at that. We just start from that Vaheguru. But so it goes so fine inside of us that it takes us to a place where that one exists, that all-knowing one exists, and then we're in touch with that now. We're in touch with that all-knowing intelligence. Yeah, this is a deeper just knowing of how to go about in life. Yeah, you still need your buddhi, your intellect to be able to work out how to do certain things. Yeah, how to put this mic together, how to wire it up. This isn't what we're talking about here. The knowing. This knowing it will literally tell you of how to be. Yeah, you'll be in your natural state. There'll be this guidance. And let's take an example. The more we get in touch with that, as we're about to get caught in our ego, as we get caught in our ego and we start resisting God, yeah, it'll communicate with us. There'll be this inner knowing and saying that, no, not this way. Imagine you're on a smooth path. The road is tarmacked, beautiful, you're in your car and you're like, yes, I can put my foot down, test the road. This is next level. You probably experienced that, right? Like when they put a new layer down of tarmac and you're thinking, yes, road is smooth.
Yeah.
And when you're in communication with that inner knowing, that pure intelligence, and you're listening, it's like life is like being on that smooth tarmac, driving on that. Life is like that all the time. And then imagine you kind of your focus now starts to wander off. Yeah. And it starts to wander off and not on the road now. And you didn't even realize, and you've started to go off the road. nowadays in England, you've got the motorways. In UK, you've got the motorways, and you have those like studs on the side. So literally, you go duk, 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 and you know you've gone off track. It's like, yo, come back. And if you haven't got those, if you've gone off track, it'll be something like, so imagine now you're walking and you go off a smooth path and you end up in a place where it's just full of thorns and they're now starting to hurt you. You're starting to bleed. And that's what it is. Most of us, I shouldn't say that because, I shouldn't be negative. There's plenty of us, let's put it that way, that are that's become our normal, our norm, our default. We're in the thorns most of the time. And then every so often we come back from the smooth path. We think, yo, this is amazing. Yeah. But most of the time we stay in the thorns. So like they've almost become like, we've become kind of accustomed to them. It's like, yeah, isn't this life? Yeah, but only when you get a taster of it, you come onto that smooth road and you think, wow, this is amazing on the feet. Yeah. So that's the listening we're talking about, is when you start, the murak is when you go off and you start getting prickled by these thorns, and those thorns is the moment you give yourself permission to hate on someone, to dislike someone. Because we have made it so okay in today's society to dislike someone, we're just in the thorns most of the day. We've become okay with them. Yeah, that means we're not listening anymore. Yeah, and listening would be that, oh my God, like this is like getting to me. But how do you know that if you're just in it all the time? Yeah. And the only way is when you see another gurmukh that's just living, or you see somebody else, another human being that's living in love all the time, and you start to think that, oh, I'm not there. That's all right. Yeah. Can I have one of them, please? Or you have a taste of it somehow and you think, oh my God, I've been living there. Yeah, this is better. And then you start doing everything to go there, and you have to listen deep inside to know how to stay there then. And life starts to become like that, where you start to listen to everything. This listening doesn't just stop there then. When you learn the art of listening, you don't need to read 100 books to know how much water to drink anymore. You don't need to ask your doctor, is it 2 liters I need to drink? It doesn't work like that. Everybody is unique, but similar. So we might need around about that mark. Yeah. But you can't just mark it like that. When you become in tune with that, knowing, you can literally, you'll be able to close your eyes and you'll just know, I need about this much, or I need about that much. Yeah. And it's difficult sometimes to kind of grasp this, but until you start experiencing that in your life. Most people don't know how much to eat because they're not listening. Yeah. Because they're scattered and the mind's not there. So listening is actually now going to go into everything in our life. Yeah. You'll know if you're focused and you're listening to the point where some people might just think, oh, right, this has gone a bit la-la now. But if you really learn the art of listening, you'll be able to listen to that piece of food if it's going to even sit right with you or not. Like, there's this deeper aliveness within everything. And because remember, everything is within the tre gun, that the 3 qualities that everything's made up of. So even certain food, it has a more predominant quality within it. And when you're in tune, you'll just know which one, how this is going to fit, how this is going to sit with me. Yeah. You won't need to go to Google at that point. And this is how the Siddhs and the yogis and, so many of these meditators lived. And then you'll know how much to eat of it as well, because you're listening. There's this deep inner listening. Like, you could just do it on a basic level, where you just actually focused on how your stomach feels. You're listening to your stomach. Yeah, but most of the time we're like tapping away, eating away. Like, did I eat? I think so. Have I eaten enough? I think so. Did I overeat? I don't know. Yeah. And then you think, I'll have a bit more. Because you didn't acknowledge it. Yeah. So then you end up overeating. But you don't realize, then it's only afterwards when you realize that actually I've been putting on weight. Or, and then these kind of things start to happen to us. And that's why Maharaji says that type of living, Maharaji saying, is cursed. What's the Pankti?
It's Kabir Ji, isn't it?
It's actually Guru Nanak Dev Ji's fit aveha jivya. It's Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And if we say this to someone today in the way society has become, they'll say that it's actually not appropriate to say that today. It's true, isn't it? If we was to say this to someone today, they'll say that's not appropriate. They say you can't say that. But Guru Granth Sahib Ji says all sorts. Yeah, this is timeless. It's not inappropriate if Guru Sahib is saying it. Yeah, and the translation is off here, by the way.
Yeah.
And something hopefully we'll fix. But it's really off. If we just look at the way that it's worded here, if we just look at the Punjabi, right, it's fit aveha jivya. That living, this type of living is just cursed, right? Jit khaye vadaya pet. Upon that eating, where you are just vadaya, basically have increased the size of your stomach. That's what that actually is saying. Not that because somebody could say, well, that's not too bad if you kind of eat to fill your belly. But that's not what it's saying. This is actually saying you've eaten and then and your stomach is growing bigger and bigger. Well, we know today one of the main things to look out for even diabetes, to prevent diabetes today is your waistline, not to have too much weight around your waist. Yeah, and that is one of the actual the causes and the factors that are contributing towards becoming diabetic.
Going back to where we actually initially started, which was just how to, or what it means to listen to someone else. And in that situation, you're not listening to your own thoughts or your own desires or your own intention of what you're going to say. It can start there, but you could directly connect that to when you're listening to Vaheguru Ji, when you're listening to the creation, when you're listening to that intuition. It all connects. And when you listen to Naam in that way, intuitively, then you're not in the thorns. You're on that clear path. And it brought the Spunky to mind, which again you've done Vijat of many times, that what about that person that doesn't know that there's a clear path, that there's, and they think the thorns are normal. What do? And the Pankti is, hum andle and bekhe bekarate kyon challa gur chali. You're just stuck in the thorns. You're blind to it. Or you could be deaf to it. You could use that example, and there's an ardas there, isn't there? Again, like we say in so many episodes, of like, okay, we've spent a good hour now almost speaking about just the first akar of this body, but it's all going to connect to the next 4, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And through listening, that's where the magic's going to happen for us, and it's the start of that journey, isn't it? Because there's also then the next 4 Bodhi, which you're gonna explain and share. But in that place where you're in the thorns, you have to sometimes connect and ask.
So I'm just listening. I was trying to listen really, like, intentively to what you were saying. You said, say if you don't know, then you can't do ardas, can you?
That's right.
And we kind of answered that before. And so if you just focus on that part, say if you don't know, what we said about that is that because Maharaj Ji say, Anjanat bhikhya maharacha. Because Jay Janat Apanap Bacha. Like if you knew, you would save yourself. Because you'd rather not have them hurting you. Because you don't even realize, the thorns. You'd rather not have them hurting you. If you knew, then you would save yourself. This is what Guru Arjan Dev Ji is saying here. Because it's not as simple as that. You've got a few cuts on your feet. It could be as bad as that a thorn actually gets inside of you and it starts to travel and poison your blood. Yeah, that's the damage it can do. But so if you're under Janat, and the truth is, the only way you can then know is through awareness, and that awareness will come through different ways. So remember we said one of the ways is you might see somebody living in a much better place internally, and you're thinking, oh wow, like you can live like that too. Like you don't hate on anyone, like you're constantly just happy and blossoming. And that's one way. Unfortunately, what is the more common way? When you end up in a really, really bad place, when you get to that tipping edge, or sometimes you end up even just over the edge where you have a mental breakdown, where then that makes you think, what have I been doing to get here? Because I don't even get it. How have I ended up here? I've obviously been doing something, resisting God to get here. Or it might not be as bad as a mental breakdown, but it's just when you're in not a good place. Yeah, and you are now really, really suffering. That's happens like that for a lot of people. It'd be great if we didn't, but that's why the Guru talks about Dookh Daru Sukh Rog Paya, because it's not the only way, by the way. Yeah, it's not the only way, but it's become the way for so many. So now, if we look at this, Suniai Sidh Peer Naath, this should make a lot more sense now. Yeah. So remember that Naam Japana is a method to get to the Naam, right? To who is referred to as the Naam Me, and the way there's just no me, and you're in touch with that one beyond all your layers of ego, and it's communicating, and you're just working from that place. That is like Naam, as the essence of Naam. Naam Japana is a way to get there. So here now Guru Sahib Ji saying Suniai Sidh Peer Naath. So through listening, like people that saw themselves to just be any old kind of ordinary person getting on with their life, and then they would look at these certain people, they'd look at these Siddhs, they'd look at these people that have got all these spiritual powers, and they look at, people that have peers, that are leaders, spiritual leaders, and the sur, and then they've heard about these gods and the deities, the powers that they have, and the Naath, these great yogis, and you just think, oh, like that's just like way, you can't even kind of comprehend it. But here Guru Sahib Ji is saying, actually, Suniai, when you master this art of listening to God's name, like the actual God communicating with you from inside, then they say that you end up with that the status. You obtain the status of these people. Like, you know, it's not that, oh my God, like they've got all of those powers. It's not like that you get those powers. Yeah. Because that's not what we're chasing here. But you are of that status is what Guru Sahib is saying here. Then Suniai Dharat Dhaval Akaas. Some of these, even for myself, I at the moment, because of I'm not there, they're hard to relate to. But what Guru Sahib Ji is saying here, Dharat here is obviously the earth, Akash is the sky, Dhaval is actually a bull, but in this context, it's referring to the support. And so what it's saying is that no longer do you have to kind of go by and believe all these mythical stories. Oh, this is how the world is kind of, you know, working, and it's standing, and this is what's supporting the earth, and this is how the sky is the way it is. Like, no longer do you have to try and believe these stories. When you go so deep inside, you actually come to know the secrets of how this earth is actually working and is what it is, and how God is actually supporting it and making it work, and the laws behind it and how it's all kind of functioning. You come to know of all of that knowledge. And this is obviously somewhere where Guru Nanak Dev Ji is just there. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji is all knowing and just knows how it's all functioning and working. And then Suniai Deep Lo Paataal. So deep can be translated to kind of the split of the earth, like the way kind of the continents, and we've spoke about that before. And then Lo are the worlds, and then Paataal are the nether region. So here again, Guru Sahib Ji is saying that through that deep listening to that one's name is that you come to know and have knowledge of all the continents, of how this all comes about, and how the world, how this earth is divided, and of all these other worlds and realms, the subtle worlds, and or even the physical ones, and the other planets, and the Paataal, what is even below this earth. And you just come to know of these things internally. Again, not something I can relate to, you know, but you know, we're here to just we're translating. And this is first-hand knowledge for Guru Nanak Dev Ji, you know. And then Suniai Pohi Sakai Kaal. Here Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying that when through this deep listening, Pohi means to touch, and they're saying that Kaal here, death cannot touch you. Why is it that death cannot touch you now? Because Kaal is still a name. It's still a quality of God that destroys something. Because through that deep listening, you've gone so deep. You've gone beyond all the layers of name. And you've gotten beyond all the layers of these three qualities that make up this creation. You're now connected to the source. Yeah. At the source, there is no such thing as death. So there's nothing there to touch you. Yeah. And then Guru Sahib Ji says, Nanak, short pause, Bhagtaa, longer pause, Sada Vigas. So it's saying here that Guru Nanak Dev Ji is saying that Bhagtaan, those devotees that are now working from that place where they are constantly listening, meaning there's no way they go to the thorns. They know there's no way they go to the jealousy. There's no way they go to those places. And so for that reason, they're in Sadavigas, are in this constant state of blossom. It's spring for them all the time. Nanak tina basant hai. Jinkar vasya kant. Nanak tina basant hai. So for them, it's always basant. It's always spring. There's nothing to be down about because they're always listening. Yeah? Nanak ਭਗਤਾਂ ਸਦਾ ਵਿਗਾਸ ਸੁਣਿਆ Dookh Paap ka Naas. And we will go into this deeper in the following sessions. When you listen, something is destroyed. Nash is the suffering that is caused by the Paap, the suffering that is caused by us going away from God, which is the Paap. And that is all destroyed. When you listen, you don't go there anymore. You just don't go towards hate anymore. All that is destroyed. That's what was causing the suffering. That's where all our problems were coming from. We're using one example, hate, and whichever one you can relate to, hopefully. You shouldn't be able to. But truth is, there's probably so many you can relate to. But yeah, so that is listening. So is there any words you would like to share as we finish off, or
I just thank you so much. It was these boarding hours a bit deep. They're quite deep, and at face value it's strange just saying listening. So thank you for shedding light on it.
It's amazing. And obviously, I personally can't relate to it all because, I'm nowhere near in just having an inner knowing of all these worlds and realms like that Guru Sahib knows of. But we're just sharing what Guru is saying, the Guru has experienced and where you can get to. So thank you, Sangat Ji, for joining us on this journey. Let's see if we can just start as a starting point when we have a conversation with someone. Let's see if you can really listen to them and not be all calculative and trying to work out what I've got to say to top and better them in what they are saying. Or, let's just try and listen deep in between the lines as well, tap into their emotions and energy and really kind of let them know that we were listening compassionately through our actions, through our response. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Please donate and help spread Guruji's message. Link is in the description below. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.